During this tutorial, we'll cover the view panels that relate to record data, and so namely record data, syllabification and alignment, and IP validation. While we're going to cover these three, record data is already been discussed in the first tutorial about the interface, and IP validation is something that we will look at very, very quickly because it is best discussed in the context of the tutorial about blind transcriptions. So we talked about record data in the other tutorial, so we've already covered some aspects of the interface, but we left aside a few other details. For example, the exclude from search button, which is useful in case you have a data record that for whatever reason, there it could be a sneeze, it could be something mispronounced, or it could be noise in the recording, which makes the record data irrelevant or not useful for your research. So what you can do is just simply click on this option here that will keep the record data into your database, which is good for documentation, and you could say not valid because of noise, for example, and so you could add in your notes field an explanation as to why this record has been excluded, and so in which case you both fulfill your roles in terms of documenting what's under data recording without adding noise to your data. That's kind of useful. And on the right-hand side of the interface, we have a few buttons here that relate to word grouping. So this particular session is using word groups, so which means we could add a new word group here and type contents that relate to this group. And in case we have different groups and we want to merge them, we have the merge function here. And in case we have a long group and we want to split it into different groups, then we can use the function to separate out the two groups. And finally, we have a few buttons here that have to do with just the alignment of the group. So if you want to keep them tidy, aligned, vertically, or if you want to just get the information left aligned within your layout. So these are just display options. And that completes the coverage of the record data here, because we've already talked about it in the context of another tutorial. There we go. Moving on to the view menu for syllabification and alignment. Here what we have is we have this interface, and what I will do here is bring the interface down next to my data so that we can see the correspondence between our tiers and record data and our syllabification and alignment. And so what we have in this particular record is a child, a second language speaker of English, saying good morning with a cute French accent. So we could play the record here.
Good morning.
Okay, and so as soon as you enter transcriptions within Fawn will automatically parse that transcription into a syllable level labeling, assigning positions such as syllable onset, nucleus, and coda to your transcription. And the interface, the algorithm, or the precise algorithm you want to use for syllabification is something that you can set within your font preferences. So you can go and in the session editor and select different types of syllabifiers for different languages. So in this particular case, it would be best advised to use an English syllabifier because the productions are in English. So the color coding is there to help us identify what are the consonants in onsets, nuclei, and coda in this particular case. And we also have other positions such as left appendix, right appendix, and so on that are used in other levels, in other types of research that require more syllable labels in order to further characterize the syllable structure of the words that the children are producing or the speakers are producing. So syllabification is obtained automatically, and I could give you a sense of that if I were to enter a new word here, and I will just do it quickly by entering a word in sudo IPA. So if I were to say something like you play, right? And I will just manually here enter the transcription, something like you play. So as soon as I validate my tier, which could be by clicking in another tier, for example, then you can see that you play now has been syllabified, and we could pretend the child says something like you pay for you play. And so that would give us again a syllabification, and where we can see that in the target form we have a branching onset, a complex onset, but in the actual form we don't. And automatically what font does when there's a transcription, and let me remove this here for to continue the conversation, so because I don't want to pollute my data set with data that don't exist. And as soon as you enter those transcriptions, you may have noticed that font will also automatically produce an alignment. So, and just to show you that, I could just add a phone here, good morning, and just change it to good mornings, which is not grammatical, but useful for our demonstration. So you can look here that as soon as I validate my tier, and to validate it now I'm just going to use the tab key, right? Then you can see that the Z was syllabified as a syllable coda. So as soon as you validate your tier, the tier gets resyllabified. And something important about it is that you can, in case font would come up with a syllabification, in case you have a string of phones that is not well managed by the algorithm for whatever language you use, then you can always right click on the phone to assign it another syllable label, and you can see all the syllable labels that are useful, that are available to font. Moving to syllable alignment, same thing, but just with a relationship between the IP target and IP actual tiers. So what font does, using a proximity match, font will provide an attempt at aligning the target form with the actual form. And in this particular case, font did a pretty good job in that the R of morning is not produced by the child, so you can see there's no alignment here. And the child produced two phones at the end, which really probably come just from the release of the sound into a vowel, and that created an acoustic reflex. But here we're not too concerned with the actual analysis. What matters here is that font is, through this alignment, able to produce a bunch of results, namely about accurate production of certain phones, deleted phones, and phone epenthesis in the actual, if compared to the target. And here we can see alignments, and the kid was pretty good at producing English, but mostly what we have are deletions and also some epenthesis cases. And another detail that's important is that in case font were to produce a spurious alignment, so there are moments where, for example, the alignment can be off here, what you can do is to, using just clicking and dragging around, you can reset this. Well, first of all, if the alignment is spurious, the first thing you can try and see if you can reset the alignment. And if you can reset the alignment, then and the alignment, like by clicking on that button, it sets everything where you would like it to be for your analyses. Then the work is done. But in case the reset doesn't help, so that would be in cases where a font has a choice between an alignment, a choice of aligning a target phone to an actual phone, or to two different actual phones that really look alike, then font might produce an alignment that you as a researcher don't agree with, in which case you can always take your mouse and drag the phone and align it with what you want. So of course you can create spurious alignments, but the idea there for both syllabification and for alignment is that we want to give the user full control over those annotations, because these annotations have direct consequences for analysis. And finally, if we quickly look at IP validation, so let me bring it up in the interface, what we see here is a system of selection, but that system of selection is only useful in the context of the blind transcription system that's built into font. and so this will be the topic of a different tutorial.